Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS families now receiving the September child tax credit payments. IR 2021-188 September 15, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department announced today that millions of American families are now receiving their Advanced Child Tax Credit, the CTC payment, for the month of September. This third batch of advanced monthly payments totaling about $15 billion is reaching about 35 million families today across the country. The majority of payments will be issued by direct deposit under the American Rescue Plan. Most eligible families received payments dated July 15th and August 13th, along with today's September 15th payment. So if you got those first two, you would think the third one would be good to go and on the way. Future payments are scheduled for October 15th, November 15th, and December 15th. For these families, each payment is up to $300 per month for each child under age 6 and up to $250 per month for each child ages 6 through 17. So quick recap on how this is working out. They're into this prepayment type of thing, which seems to be the go-to tool these days for the stimulus kind of payments or activity as we go through the kind of the issues that has been happening with regards to the economy and so on. And for the credit, that then means for the child tax credit, they have increased the amount of the credit, which means you wouldn't normally get it until you file the tax return for year 2021 in or by April 15th of 2022. But then they gave the prepayment. So in essence, you can think of this basically amount per child on a payment by payment basis, or possibly on a basis of the full amount of the credit if you were to have filed at the end of the year, which you're going to have to end up doing by April 15th of 2022. They increased the amount of the credit. They also made more of it refundable, meaning even if your tax liability goes below zero, you may still get a benefit from it. That then making it easier for them to estimate based on prior year tax returns or whatever information they have, to be able to take half of it, in essence. They then cut whatever the credit would be in half and stint it out in this year for payments during 2021. So that's the general idea. Therefore, you can think about these payments as they're saying here, $300 or $250 per month for each child that qualifies within the age brackets, and or you could think of it as the total credit that you would get if filing the tax return or when filing the tax return for 2021 by April 15th of 2022. Now, obviously, once you get the payments throughout the year, when you do file the tax return by April 15th of 2022, you're going to have to calculate the full credit and then figure out how many payments you got during the year, which should be half, you would think. If I'm getting this correct, it should be basically half. So you should still get a benefit when you file the tax return by April 15th, generally, of 2022. Okay, that's the general overview. So here are further details on these payments. Families will see the direct deposit payments in their accounts starting today, September 15th. Like the prior payments, this vast majority of families will receive them by direct deposit. For those receiving payments by paper check, be sure to allow extra time through the end of September for delivery by mail. Those wishing to receive future payments by direct deposit can make this change using the Child Tax Credit Update portal. There's a link to that. It's available only on irs.gov, irs.gov. To access the portal or to get a new step-by-step guide for using it, visit irs.gov/Child Tax Credit 2021. There's a link to that here. A change made by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on October 4th will apply starting with the October payment. Payments went to eligible families who filed a 2019 or 2020 income tax return. So remember, this is a prepayment. So that means it's going to be tied to 2021, which is not yet filed. Therefore, they had to get the information somewhere. Typically, that would be in the prior return, 2020, if filed, if not, 2019. Returns processed by August 30th are reflected in these payments. This includes people who don't typically file a return, but during 2020 successfully registered for economic impact payments using the IRS non-filer tool on irs.gov, or in 2021 successfully used the non-filer sign-up tool for the advanced CTC, also available only on IRS.gov. So in other words, if you didn't file the tax return, but you used the non-filer tool in order to give the IRS the minimum information without having to file an actual tax return to get the economic impact payments and or child tax credits, then you might also get the credit or should also get the credit even though you don't have those tax returns in place. So in other words, you would need to get the credit out. The IRS needs the information from the prior year, either 2020 tax return, 2019 tax return, or this non-filer tool in the event that you use that instead of basically filing the tax return because your income's below the threshold to be needing to file the tax return. So payments are automatic aside from filing a tax return, which could include filling a simple return from the non-filer sign-up tool. Families didn't have to do anything if they are eligible to receive monthly payments. So they're going to base it on the prior year return. You shouldn't have to do anything for the most part then in order to have the IRS just automatically figure these automatic payments based on prior year data and send them out. Families who did not get a July or August payment and are getting their first monthly payment in September will still receive their total advance payments for the year of up to $1,800 per each child under age 6 and up to $1,500 for each child ages 6 through 17. This means that the total payment will be spread over the 4 months rather than 6 months, making each monthly payment larger. So in other words, if for whatever reason, for example, the IRS didn't have the information in order to calculate the credit for the prior 2 payments, then the question would be, well, what does that mean? Are we going to get the same amount of the payments as if, because remember the calculation, they basically take the total credit that you would have gotten when filing the tax return, cut it in half, and then spread it over 2021, basically dividing it by 6 and sending out for 6 months. Well, what if 2 months pass and you didn't get any money? Are you still going to get the amount as if they divided it by 6 and spread it out, or are they going to take that 6 months worth of payment and divide it over the next 4 months or whatever are still remaining? The answer is the latter. They should be adjusting the payments so that you get a payment that will be increased if you hadn't received the prior payment, because they're still basically taking half the credit and then allocating it over the shorter time period rather than 6 months, 4 months, or whatever the case may be. So this means that the total payments will be spread over 4 months rather than 6 months, making each monthly payment larger. For these families, each payment is up to $450 per month for each child under age 6 and up to $375 for each month for each child ages 6 through 17. Still time to sign up. Additional details. It's not too late for families who haven't filed a 2020 income tax return, including those who are not normally required to file because their incomes are too low, to sign up for advanced CTC child tax credit payments. Most low-income families can get these monthly payments. So in other words, most people don't have to do anything, but if you haven't got your payments at this point in time and you think you qualify for it, it might be the fact that you haven't filed a tax return in order to get the payment, so they don't have the information from 2020, 2019, or the non-filer tool. You can then fill out the tax return even if you're not required to. It would probably be beneficial to do so because more and more there's this money that could be out there for things like the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and so on. And it's easy to do so these days, or at least it's free to do so, although you still got to file a tax return, which is a little kind of difficult. But they got the software. You need access to the software and online to do it. But in essence, you could get access generally to online software in order to file the tax return. And you can find that on the IRS website at irs.gov. You want to do that by at least October 15th if you want to use that tool, because it might not be there after that point in time. So if you haven't filed the 2020 tax return and you want to do so and you want to use a free tool, or at least look into whether it would be beneficial to do, I would do that soon, because you should have access to the free software to do it up until October 15th, I believe, and it might go away after that time. So most low-income families can get these monthly payments. The IRS urges families who normally aren't required to file a tax return to explore the tools available on irs.gov, irs.gov. These tools can help determine their eligibility or help them file a simplified tax return to sign up for these payments, as well as to be considered automatically for the third round of economic impact payments of up to $1,400 per person, and to claim the recovery rebate credit covering any of the first two rounds of economic impact payments they may have missed. So if you haven't got the economic impact payments and so on and so forth, then there could be, money on the table here. So the IRS encourages partners and community groups to share information and use available online tools and toolkits. There's a link to online tools and toolkits here to help non-filers, low-income families, and other underserved groups sign up to receive these benefits. Families can stop payments anytime, even after payments begin. They can do that by using the unenroll feature in the Child Tax Credit portal. Eligible families who make this choice will still receive the rest of their child tax credit as a lump sum when they file their 2021 federal income tax return next year. So in other words, if you're getting the payments and for whatever reason you say, hey, I don't want the payments, so possibly you're moving and you don't have any way to get the payments, or you don't have an address and you don't have basically a bank account for them to go to anymore, or something like that, or you're not completely sure if you qualify for the payment, then you might go onto the portal and say, stop sending me the payment right now. I'll take the rest of the payment when I file the tax return for 2021 by April 15th of 2022. And what happens then, we would expect, this is the first time we've ever seen this, but we would expect that you would have to calculate whatever the payment would be or the credit would be in total, subtract out whatever payments you have received from it, and then whatever is left, which if you got all the payments, I believe would be half of the credit, you'd get that. But if you canceled some of the payments, then you should get more than half. You should get whatever the remaining balance is at the point in time you file. So to stop all payments starting in October and for the rest of 2021, they must unenroll by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, ET, on October 4th, 2021. For married couples, each spouse must unenroll separately. If they each choose to unenroll, they will receive no monthly payments. If only one spouse unenrolls, they will still receive monthly payments, but they will be half the normal amount. So the unenroll feature can also be useful to any family that no longer qualifies for the CTC or believes they will not qualify when they file the return in 2022. This could happen if, for example, someone else, such as an ex-spouse or another family member, qualifies to claim their child or children as dependents in 2021. So in other words, if you basically had someone as a dependent on your tax return in the prior year, 2020 or 2019, that's not going to be there in the following year, possibly due to some kind of maybe joint custody or something where they're on the tax return of one spouse one time or one in the other parent the other time, then you might say, well, I'm not going to be qualifying for the child tax credit, and they would still be giving you the advanced credit because based on the prior year return, you would have qualified. Now, what you could do then is say, don't give me the credit. Now, note, you would expect in that situation that if they gave you a credit for the child tax credit and you didn't qualify it for a situation such as that, then when you file the tax return, you would have gotten the credit and you shouldn't have, and you would expect you would have to pay it back at that point in time. But note, and we have seen with another credit that's similar to this, and that being for the marketplace, healthcare prepayments for the healthcare marketplace, where they basically waived it. They just said, well, if you actually took too much money from a prepayment for the healthcare marketplace, then that's okay. And they just kind of they didn't make you pay it back basically when you did the tax return. So I'm not saying they're going to do it, but I honestly would not be surprised if at the end of the year they'd said, oh, and if you accidentally had a child on your tax return last year that, it's not on your tax return for 2021, and we gave you money that we shouldn't have, given the fact that they wouldn't ask for it back. I can see them making a law and not getting it back. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but they've kind of done that in the past with that health insurance one. So I wouldn't really plan on that, but again, I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised at all. So at this time, IRS also reminded eligible families who are not getting these payments, especially those who receive little or no income, that the IRS non-filer sign-up tool remains available to use until October 15th. So October 15th seems to be the deadline to file some kind of tax return to get these prepayments. It also seems to possibly be the deadline to get access to free software from third-party providers, which is something that many people might want to do if you haven't filed your tax returns for 2020, because again, you got the child tax credit. Then you got the advanced credits. You got the economic impact payments. You got the earned income credits. So even if you're not required to file, you may quite possibly get money in some way by filing the tax return, and the software is free. So links if you're below a certain threshold of income. So links to these tools, a step-by-step guide to using the non-filer sign-up tool, answers to frequently asked questions, and other helpful resources are available on IRS's special advanced CTC Child Tax Credit 2021 page. There's a link to that page here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.